Why do the most successful reformers in history so often end up discarded, erased, or dead? You'd think cleaning up a collapsing state, restoring fiscal stability, and making the machine work again would earn you a monument. But more often than not, it earns you a quiet purge, maybe an accusation of corruption, and a legacy rewritten by your enemies. This isn't rare. It's the standard pattern. You see it in the Roman Republic, the late Ottoman Empire, the Soviet Union. And in Imperial China, you see it over and over again. It doesn't matter whether you're right. It doesn't matter if the state survives because of you. If you win alone, you lose everything. And nobody illustrates this better than Zhang Juzheng. Let's start with the core concept, the classic mistake of reformers. It looks like this. A reformer rises in a broken system. They impose order, crack down on inefficiency, and restore functionality, usually by concentrating power. They often work under a weak or young ruler who gives them the space to act. And they get results. But in the process, they break all the social and political rules that keep the elite comfortable. They sideline power centers. They centralize authority. They make too many enemies. And crucially, they don't institutionalize anything. The system runs through them and only them. So when they die, or lose their grip, there's nothing left holding their reforms together. Their enemies regroup, tear everything down, and rewrite history. It's not failure that destroys the reformer. It's success without durability. Zhang Juzheng didn't fail because his reforms didn't work. They worked. He failed because he didn't build anything that could survive him. Now let's talk about Zhang Juzheng. In the late 16th century, the Ming Empire was spiraling. The bureaucracy was bloated. The tax system was broken. The military was expensive and inefficient. Corruption was institutionalized. And the emperor on the throne was a child. That's where Zhang comes in. Zhang Juzheng wasn't a revolutionary. He was a career bureaucrat who rose through the ranks by mastering the rules of the system and then breaking them once he was in charge. He became the Grand Secretary under the child emperor, Wanli. And for about 10 years, he ran the empire like a personal operation. Let's break down what he did. First, tax reform. The Ming tax system had become a nightmare. People paid in kind, in labor, in silver, and in theory. Local officials pocketed half of it, and no one had any idea what was actually being collected. Zhang replaced it all with a single standardized silver payment. This made the tax base legible. It cut out middlemen. It stabilized the state's revenue. It also shifted enormous burdens onto the elites, who could no longer dodge taxes by gaming the categories. Second, bureaucracy. Zhang conducted aggressive assessments of local officials. Anyone who failed in performance was demoted or fired. He turned the empire's paperwork into a weapon and purged thousands of useless administrators. Again, effective. But also disruptive. Third, he attacked the aristocracy's tax shelters. For decades, powerful families had hidden land from official records to avoid taxes. Zhang launched secret land surveys and clawed those lands back into the fiscal system. The state's income soared. The landlords started plotting his destruction. Fourth, frugality. He forced the court to cut spending, even among the emperor's family. Palaces were stripped down. Entourages were trimmed. Ceremonial waste was reduced. In a culture where extravagance signaled status, this was personal. Fifth, centralized authority. Every decision, every document, every major personnel change went through Zhang. He became the bottleneck for governance. Nothing happened without his approval. For a decade, he was the real power in the empire. And for a while, it worked. The treasury was full again. The army was paid. The roads were functional. The bureaucracy was terrified, but efficient. And the Ming dynasty, dying slowly before Zhang took over, got a 10-year extension. But here's the catch. Zhang never shared power. He never built a faction. He didn't recruit loyalists. He didn't promote people who could carry his vision forward. Everything flowed through him. When he was there, the system worked. But there was no mechanism to make it work without him. And he ignored the emperor. The Wanli emperor was a child when Zhang took power, but he grew up. And he didn't forget how Zhang treated him, like a figurehead, like a tool, like someone to be kept away from real decisions. Zhang never saw the emperor as a political actor. He saw him as an obstacle to be managed. That was a fatal mistake. In 1582, Zhang Juzheng died. And the moment he died, everything he built started to collapse. The Wanli emperor, now an adult, acted immediately. He stripped Zhang of his titles. He confiscated his property. He posthumously declared him corrupt. He reversed many of his personnel appointments. And most importantly, he allowed the old elite networks to reassert themselves. Zhang's family was ruined. His name was dragged through the mud. His enemies, landowners, eunuchs, sidelined ministers, came out of hiding and erased his influence. The bureaucracy Zhang had disciplined returned to its old habits. The court stopped enforcing fiscal restraint. The tax base weakened again. Corruption came back. And within a few decades, the same structural decay returned, this time without another Zhang to fix it. This wasn't an accident. This was the system rejecting an external pressure once the pressure was gone. Zhang Juzheng wasn't purged because he failed. He was purged because he succeeded too well, too independently, and too visibly. So let's restate the pattern. Reformers in imperial systems, especially centralized, autocratic ones, face three strategic traps. Trap 1, they centralize all reform through themselves. This is the only way to cut through the rot. But it means the reforms die with them. Trap 2, they alienate all other power centers. The more they clean up, the more enemies they create, landowners, clerks, eunuchs, nobility. And these enemies don't forget. They wait. Trap 3, they don't prepare the system to function without them. No succession plan. No ideological coalition. No institutionalized reform culture. Just one smart guy keeping everything going with personal willpower. That isn't a system. That's a countdown timer. Zhang Juzheng walked straight into all three. He didn't build resilience into his reforms. He didn't train the emperor to be a partner. He didn't protect his flank with a loyal coalition. And he didn't control the narrative after his death. Which meant that when he was gone, the reform effort collapsed almost instantly. Now let's zoom out. This is not just a Chinese problem. It's an autocratic problem. It's a reformer's dilemma in any rigid hierarchy. You can find echoes of Zhang Juzheng everywhere. In the Soviet Union, Gorbachev reformed from the top, cutting the military budget, opening up civil society, decentralizing the party. The result? The collapse of the state. In the Ottoman Empire, the Tanzimat reformers tried to modernize administration and law. They were overruled, sidelined, and eventually crushed by the factions they tried to neutralize. In modern states, you'll occasionally see a bold technocrat rise, slash waste, force accountability, and then disappear the moment their political cover is gone. The lesson is simple: reform in a resistant system requires not just power, but durability. You don't just fix the machine. You change its wiring, protect it from sabotage, and train people who can keep it running. Zhang Juzheng fixed the machine. But he didn't change the wiring. And no one was trained to keep it running. So the moment he was gone, the engine sputtered, and the state slid back into decay. So what could Zhang Juzheng have done differently? He could have built a reformist faction, a group of loyal bureaucrats who shared his goals and could continue his work. He could have invested in the emperor, brought him into the process, trained him, given him a sense of ownership over the reforms. He could have institutionalized reform oversight, created structures that enforced standards independently of his personal presence. He did none of these. Because like many reformers, he assumed results would protect him. That the emperor would be grateful. That performance would speak for itself. It never does. In a system based on relationships, status, and memory, results are only part of the equation. The rest is power, protection, and legacy. Zhang had the results. He had no protection. And his legacy was demolished the moment he lost control. That's the Zhang Juzheng problem. And that's why reformers, unless they play the long game, almost always lose.